Welcome back. It's day 6 of Piss and Vinegar, I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. Yep, it's day 6, leg day. So I do quite an extensive warm up for leg day. I've got a lot of dysfunction because all my joints are pretty hypermobile, so I don't get a lot of stability in my joints, including my lower back. My lower back's very hypermobile. I can hyperextend quite easily, so I have pretty tight muscles everywhere too in my posterior from sitting a lot and just being a general video gamer for the last 15 20 years until very recently. So I'm dealing with that now by rolling everything out before I do leg day. So I'm using the foam roller just to get the whole area kind of loosened up, crack my back a little bit, and then I switch over to a lacrosse ball or a peanut ball. Secondly, I put a smaller roller in between my thoracic spine, open up my shoulders, I hold that for a while, and then I put the peanut ball and roll up from my rhomboids all the way down to my back extensors and all the different muscles that run from the spine. So I just start from the thoracic all the way down to the base of the spine, get everything loosened up. I use the bench. If you're ever using the peanut roller and it's too painful, use a bench to alleviate some of the weight. And then I put a ball. Oh, the camera died because it was too hot. But basically, I put a ball on my femoris because I have sciatica. And I roll out my hip flexors and femoris and glutes. And then I do a bit of static stretching. And I know the consensus typically nowadays says static stretching before exercise is a bad idea. And I would agree ordinarily, but if you have pretty tight leg muscles like I do, I think it's best to just get adequate range of motion from quick stretching before you do it. And I'm not so sure how bad static stretching is preemptively anyway. I think the studies are a bit hit and miss with that. So for me, it helps. I feel loosened up. I feel more explosive after I stretch. Feel everything kind of more lubricated. Feels like everything's working better. So I stretch. Just doing the base stretches for the quads, the hamstrings, the glute medius, the glutes, hip flexors and stuff. I don't do anything upper body wise. Just get the legs kind of nimble and relaxed. And I don't push the stretches either. I don't stretch the fascia or anything. Just kind of get some range of motion basically. This one's really bad for me on the left side. I need to get into a chiropractor or something to adjust my my sacrum. My sacrum's a bit tight on the right side, or the left side rather, this side that you see now. Yeah, my leg day, I have a bit of volume in my leg days, so there's a few reasons why. One, I only just started squatting again 3 months ago, and due to a lot of injuries and just not being able to squat, like I wasn't necessarily injured, but I just couldn't squat correctly, couldn't really progressively overload my squat due to nagging things. So I really had to rehab over the last kind of year or so, just let everything rest. So I only just started squatting again and deadlifting again very recently. So because I'm basically in a novice stage now, because I lost all my leg strength in the squat and deadlift, I'm now doing some volume, and in order to get my central nervous system efficient at the movement, get more reps, get more time and attention in, and that way I can learn the movement back up again, because right now it's quite weak. And then I also warm up with some banded walks. I walk side to side, get my glute medius and minimus activated. That way my knees don't buckle when I do my squats. So if you have any knee buckling, or if your glutes just don't fire on your squats, I highly suggest doing this before your squats. Just wide steps, and man, you feel it quick. As soon as my dog's here to play, you feel it quick. I've only done like 6 or 7 step back and forth, and already my glute medius and minimus is cooked. So these are really good. You can even do these just to build the glute medius and minimus if you don't have a abduction machine. But I just do them to warm up and get my glutes warmed up for my squat. So today on this squat workout, I'm doing a box squat. I do standard squats and box squats, and I kind of do them concurrently. That way I don't do the same squat each week. And that way I have more linear progression in the tank. Especially now that I'm cutting weight, it's really hard to gain any strength and any movement. So I like to keep it a bit fresh. But today is the box squat. I like box squats because they keep you consistent. A lot of the times when people, they do normal squats, free range of motion squats, and what ends up happening is they'll get to, say, parallel when they first start, and then 20 kilos later, they think they've progressed 20 kilos of strength, when in reality, they've progressed 3 inches of range of motion, which has allowed them to add weight every session, but they haven't actually gained all that much strength. So the box squat eliminates that by putting you at the exact same depth every single time. And there's many reasons I like the box squat. Secondly, firstly, it puts you at the exact depth you want to be at every time. Secondly, it carries over to deadlifts very well because you're at a dead stop, so you have that dead strength. And it's more posterior, much like the deadlift, so you're not on the quads as much. I'm very, very quad dominant, and my hamstrings and glutes are quite weak, and I have an imbalance on my left glute and hamstring. So this variation of the squat is way better for me to get my hamstrings, glutes, and lower back activated versus a normal squat or a arse to grass squat or a front squat. So I prefer the box squats. I give all my novice all my novice clients or anyone that's beginning working out these because they're safer too. You don't need as much mobility. If you don't have adequate mobility on a typical squat, your form's going to break down. You're going to round your lower back. You can potentially injure yourself. You can potentially fall over because you haven't got the balance. On a box squat, if you can't get back up, you just sit there for 3 minutes until lactic acid comes out of the muscles, and then you can stand back up. They're as safe as you can possibly be on a squat. So I love the box squat. I swear by box squats, and I only just started doing them recently. And the strength is already going up pretty decently. Even whilst on a cut, I'm in a massive calorie deficit right now, and I'm still making good linear progression just because I'm so novice at these again. I'm barely squatting 110 kilos here. Then I move on to a set to failure. So this is actual failure work, whereas the squats weren't. This is a 2-plate deficit, so I think this is probably about 3.5, 4, maybe even probably 4-inch deficit on these deadlifts here. And my deadlift's really weak again, and I'm super weak off the floor right now. My hamstrings and lower back are really, again, I'm quad dominant. So in order to strengthen up my deadlift, I'm trying to get strong off the floor by putting myself into a deficit deadlift. So these are really good for getting the hamstrings and glutes activated in the deadlift if you're kind of a quad dominant guy like me with short femurs. And then I move on to the Bulgarian split squat. I do these slightly different. A lot of people, they'll squat forwards over the knee, knees over toes guy, and that's fine. That's great for your knees. But I'm not trying to train my quads today as much as I'm trying to train my posterior. This is my posterior day, so everything's much more posterior orientated. So I put myself backwards, and that way the emphasis goes into the glute rather than the quad. And as someone that has a very difficult time activating their glutes, and as someone that has a massive disparity between their left and right leg strength, especially posterior wise, this is really good because I can train them individually, unilaterally. My left leg is quite a lot weaker, which you'll see in a second. I have to drop the weight from 9 kilos to 5 kilos, and I get less reps. So this is really good for addressing my imbalance on my left side with my sciatic leg, or my sciatic, the leg that has sciatica on it. And if anyone has imbalance who's watching this, I highly suggest doing the Bulgarian split squats. Or if you're trying to activate your glutes and you're having a really difficult time doing it with anything else, this is guaranteed to give you a sick glute pump, sick glute activation. Because I've tried hip thrusts, I've tried RDLs, I've tried all the different glute specific movements, and none of them hit my glutes, not even a little bit. These hit my glutes like fucking house on fire. My legs are, my glutes are shaking after I do these. So try these out. Try these variations where you go backwards rather than forwards, and you'll get way less weight, you'll get less reps, and you'll have less balance, but you'll hit your glutes amazingly if you give these a go. And they also help a lot with your balance. As you can see, I'm really trying to balance on top of lift the weights, so you get this kind of stability aspect to it as well. And these are good too because you can take them to mechanical failure. Barbell squats are a bit unsafe to take into mechanical failure because your lower back, your abs will typically give out before your legs do and will break down the form. And on top of that, if you fail a squat at the bottom, how are you getting back up? You have to make a pin height so that you can drop it down, but it's a lot of fuck around. I prefer doing squats with just a slight bit of volume because one, they're technical, and two, they're hard to take to failure. So as much of a failure guy I am, I don't do barbell squats to failure. I need a hack squat or a leg press for that one day. So now I'm doing Nordic curls. I found these from Knees Over Toes guy. I think these are exceptional. I find that unlike, other hamstring movements, these train the ligaments and tendons more, really bulletproof the knees. So you get a bit of hamstring muscular activation, or quite a lot actually, but they're actually really also great for strengthening up the tendons, which gives you that explosivity and that knee stability and that kind of bulletproofed hamstring. And I'm like barely any range of motion here, 5 second negatives, and it's still brutally hard. A tip with these ones too is you want to have a straight line from head to knee. You don't want to have any bend in your hips because it will make it exponentially easier, and it'll be like the squat where you keep changing the range of motion to get more and more reps. You want to keep it exactly the same every single time. Don't cheat the reps, otherwise you'll cheat your progression. And these are brutal, man. Like these are really fucked up. They start off super easy. You feel like you could do 1,000 reps, and then 10 reps in, I can't even get off the bar. I'm doing force reps now. And then I finish this session off with lower back. So I'm doing some hyperextensions. Now I do two different variations as hyperextensions. I do really high range of motion ones that hit my glutes, hamstrings, and lower back. Whereas these variations, I'm just doing kind of a half rep, or yeah, basically a half rep. And this way I can train my spinal erectors primarily. I mean, your glutes and hamstrings are still going to be activated, but this variation is just to simply hit my spinal erectors. And I'm doing a very slow 5 second tempo negative to keep it as safe as possible, because you never want to fuck around with good mornings or back extensions, no matter how light they might be. And that's basically my leg day. Again, this is probably my longest session. This takes about 30, maybe 35 minutes because I'm doing a little volume at the start and there's quite a lot of exercise selection. But again, high intensity is king, man. You can get a leg day done in 35 minutes. Realistically, you could do less than what I'm doing. I'm just kind of overkilling it for the sake of overkill. But you could get a leg day done in 20 minutes if you had a machine, really. The reason I can't hit failure in a lot of these movements is they're not machines. If I could, this would be a 20-minute day, and I'd be in and out. And previously, I used to skip leg days because they would go for, hour, 2 hours. Now it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, done, bang. I'm no longer dreading these leg days, skipping leg days. People are always skipping leg days. Anyway, see you guys tomorrow for shoulders and biceps, more piss and vinegar high intensity training.